Alright guys, so this is another review video. It's been a while, maybe could be more than a year, let me check, since the last review video that I did. As you can tell, I'm kind of trying to actually continue my series because I've had an issue of just not ever continuing them. So like I've been trying to continue this review series, I've been trying to continue the Arkham Knight map redesign. I'm trying to continue the Batman Continues thing, which is on the back burner. It's been a year since the last Ailurus reviews, and that one was more specifically about movies, and I'm going to focus on video games in this episode of it, and maybe in the future it'll be more video game focused, probably. But I also wanted to make this video because I was trying to think of ways to break it up, because I get a little annoyed when there's like 3 or 4 Batman videos in a row. Like, it feels weird, like I should probably break it up with something, and so that's kind of what this is. So today I'm gonna review 2 games that I've played recently, Norco and Stray. Now, I'm probably late to this, but I don't care. I'm actually pretty excited to talk about Norco. I feel like it was a game I wanted to say something about on the channel, but it's not a game that like I'm definitely a very big level design person, environmental design person, and this game is very opposed to that in a way, because it's all 2D. It's a pixel art game, point and click adventure game that I don't usually play, and I wouldn't do a good job of like making an analysis of the game. On the website it says Norco is a southern gothic point and click narrative adventure that immerses the player in the sinking suburbs and verdant industrial swamps of a distorted South Louisiana. And I think that's a great description of the game. It's a very weird game. I will say this game is available on Game Pass, Xbox, it's available on Steam. I'm not sure if it's available on PlayStation, but you could probably check. It might be, probably. But it is developed by Geography of Robots, which, can I say, that's a really freaking cool studio name, and it's published by Raw Fury. So, like I said, this is a game that I usually wouldn't play, but since I'm trying to become a game developer and I've been learning Unity and stuff like that, I need to play more games. You know, if you want to make films, you need to watch a lot of films. You need to watch a lot of bad films, a lot of good films. It's the same thing for a game developer. I need to play games, and certain games I just can't get into. I've definitely done a lot of reading in other games. Like, I love Outer Wilds. That was a game that took me a while to play, but once I did break out of my bubble into the game like Outer Wilds, I was like, thank God, because it's one of my favorite games ever. I really like pixel art. I really like it's something that's beautiful to look at, but I've never super been into pixel art games. I've never super been into like 2D games. I'm mainly a 3D person, and I'm mainly a first person type of person. It also has turn-based combat, which I think is one of the weaker points of the game, and a lot of critics and stuff I've seen have pointed this out, that it's such a minor part of the game that it feels kind of unnecessary. It doesn't add anything to the story or much of anything, really. But yeah, the main thing you're doing in this game is basically pointing and clicking to get to different parts of the map, talk to different people, and basically find clues around these different canvases, these different locations, these still frames. And what I think works for a 2D game, for a pixel art game, that I kind of struggled with, is in a 3D environment, you're immersed almost immediately. What I'm trying to say is it's easier to get immersed in a 3D game where you're literally walking around like you would in real life than it is for a 2D pixel art game where it's sort of a impressionistic view of reality, and it's like you can't move around like you can in real life. But what I've found with this game is it's all about the world building. It's all about the characters. It's all about basically putting you into the world in other ways than just spatially. It's about selling you this reality. It's sort of a very depressing kind of dystopia type of environment that the game takes place in, and it has a lot of like crazy sci-fi futuristic elements and almost fantastical elements. But there's also things in the game that are very similar to real life, like I said, with the phone and stuff, and like a lot of the buildings, some of them are extremely futuristic, and then others look just like normal real life or something. So it's definitely an alternate reality, but it doesn't exactly explain in what way it's different. Like, how did this world come about? I'm not from Louisiana, I've never been there, but from everyone I've heard review the game who have been in that area or grew up in that area, the game really captures the idea of the place, but it's not just referential. It really understands the place. You can tell that they actually know what they're talking about here. I don't want to spoil too much of the story, but you're sort of this kind of mysterious main character that comes back home to this place. Your mom has died recently, and so you're coming back to basically check up on your brother and stuff after you've been gone for years. And once you get there, you discover your brother is missing. So now you're teaming up with different people to basically find your brother and find out how your mom died, because you don't know. And so it's this mystery game, and you're just going throughout different areas, and you also play as an entirely different character at some point, exploring this location, this fictional alternate reality that's very weird. I don't exactly know when it takes place. This is such an internet age type of game. You have a phone in the game, and like you can play apps on the phone, but it's not like obnoxious or anything. It's not like a boomer's take on like technology. It's very much in line with like, it's a very internet age game, I think. A lot of the themes and the narrative in the game, it's a lot of stuff I can't explain, especially at the end of the game. I know there's an alternate ending. As soon as I beat the game, I kind of got the worst ending. I'm not sure. I think there's only 2 endings, but I'm not entirely sure. I immediately knew there was another ending once I beat the game, because I remembered something you could do in like one of the last levels that I wasn't able to do. But basically, like, the end of the game, or the ending I got, was very open-ended. It doesn't explain itself all the time. And I think that's to leave a lot of this stuff up to interpretation and sort of like interpret what this is supposed to represent about real life. Like, what is this supposed to mean in the context of the real world? These very fantastical, sci-fi, crazy, weird elements. One thing I'll talk about is like one of the main themes of the game is AI, but it's a very different type of interpretation of AI. It's not your normal like evil robot type of AI. AI in this game feels like more of an interpretation of like maybe the real life internet or something like that. It feels more like it's a tool to explain something about humans, not necessarily something about actual AI. Which I find very interesting. AI in this game is like this sort of corroding, like nasty thing that is getting everywhere and something you should avoid. People are actively not trying to engage with technology as much as they can because it feels as if something in the past has really created a negative connotation of technology. There's tons of other themes that it goes into the game, but I think that's the AI part. I think is one of the most important themes, but it also has a ton of biblical themes. Especially the ending I got personally was extremely biblical. I'm not gonna say it's like a story that like really changed my life or anything. It's not. It didn't absolutely like blow me away, but it was enough to really invest me in this world, and it really helped me enjoy the other parts of the game, which is the music and the art style. The pixel art in this game is amazing. There are certain locations that have a little bit less quality of pixel art, but overall the game has these just amazing renditions of pixel art, this amazing art style. And like I said with the AI and the biblical stuff, that all ties into the art style. Like, it combines this corrosive AI idea. Like, if you look at the cover art for the game, that's perfectly what I'm talking about. It's this very like mosaic biblical imagery, but it's this dystopian, artificial intelligence, naturalistic corrosive crap that's like invading the scene, if that makes any sense. Trying not to sound pretentious with these details, but the art style is really complicated and it's really unique, I think. One thing that really helps the game is the music itself. It really brings the feeling of the place and elevates it. The art style combined with the music is, I think, the main selling point of the game. And it's probably the reason you should play it, you know, because the story itself is something that you sort of have to get involved with, but the music and the art style is something you're gonna see immediately. It's something that's gonna sell you immediately. The one last thing I want to talk about is that the game, like I said, it's not pretentious. The game is very self-aware and it has a ton of funny moments, especially when you play as an alternative character and basically break into a cult. It's one of my favorite parts of the game because it has some of the funniest dialogue in the game. I can't wait to play more of these types of games that really like encapsulate the modern time, really encapsulate like the internet and like personalities that basically come out of the internet and hypocrisy on the internet. I really like it. It has some really ridiculous looking characters, really funny stuff. So while it gets really deep, it's also like not taking itself seriously enough to like where it's not funny. Like it's always still funny. So yeah, I could go on and on about this game, but I really just wanted to talk about this on the channel because it's a very interesting game and it's one of the few pixel art games I've played. One of the few point and click games, and maybe I can get into more of them. Maybe I will try. So the next game is Stray. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's way bigger than Norco. Norco is a very like kind of Game Pass really elevates it, but it's definitely like a very indie underground type of game. I don't know if underground is correct if it's on Game Pass, but it's a pretty unknown game. Stray is a huge game that just started this whole trend of small animal games. If you've noticed, like if you're on Twitter and you follow game developers, like there's a ton of small animal games coming out. So like be prepared this year because I feel like a lot of those games are gonna come out. Like Squirrel with the Gun, and like I saw an isopod game, I saw a mouse game. There tons of games are coming out. There's a penguin game. Stray, very known game. It has a lot of high reviews. I'm skeptical of whether a lot of those high reviews are deserved because a lot of this comes down to like it's a very cute animal and people just like, it's one of those high concept like easy to sell games. Like everyone loves cats, they're going to play this game, so it's gonna get high reviews no matter what. The game itself is still good, but I don't think it deserves like the incredibly high reviews it's getting, which I'll explain later. I'm probably not going to talk as much about Stray because it's definitely it's more of a normal type of game. I wouldn't say it's too artsy. It's definitely more of a commercial game. That's not a bad thing since you are a cat. And I really appreciate this about the game. The story is not like, the cat isn't going to become like an extremely deep character or anything. It's not going to explain like a huge like your origin story or something. You just immediately get into the action of the game. The actual motivation for you as a cat to basically escape this, I don't want to spoil the game, but you're basically escaping this area, this huge like city of some sort that is slowly explained like what this place is over the course of the game. And it's a very simple motivation. The game is simple. The introduction of your character is simple, and simple here is very good. I like how little it says, but once you get into the city, the cat itself is more of an observer. Like the cat can't necessarily talk. The other characters talk. The companion you have is basically your interpreter. A cat's characteristics come out through their actions, like what they do, the cute stuff they do, or like when they're fighting something. And that's how this game works. There's a ton of comedic moments, like puzzle solving moments where you do something you might see in like a cat meme or something. It's very cute, it's very funny sometimes, and it's really interesting how the movement is set up. I do kind of hope they make a sequel because I feel like some of the movement you do is very limited. Like, you're on rails. Like, if you get onto like a big metal beam that you need to cross, and it's like this skinny metal beam, you're basically on rails. It's impossible that you're gonna fall off and die, basically. And a lot of the game is this way. It's definitely still fun to explore. Like, you can go under very small gaps. You can go through small little pipes and stuff like that other characters throughout the world can't get through. And that's really cool, and I really appreciate that as a game. But it's a mechanic that they don't go all the way with. It's a mechanic that I feel like a sequel could really expand on. And the way that the game ends really leaves it open to a sequel. It's a very simple game that I think introduces just enough to where a sequel, if they spend a lot more time on it than this game, they could totally expand it into a huge game with a ton of mechanics that really add on to this. Like I said with the story, the cat character itself is perfect. But there's a lot of other characters who do have really cool characteristics. It's another game like Norco that doesn't take itself too seriously. It has a lot of funny moments, and the characters itself, because you're interacting with robots basically the entire game, and you're basically like one of the only friendly, actually biological animals in the game. A lot of the characters are ridiculous. A lot of the characters are funny, and a lot of it doesn't make sense entirely, but like the game knows that. It's not supposed to be like an overly realistic game. The world building is very simple. Like the location is explained slowly throughout the story, and it's not going to be like a location that has like an insane amount of twists and turns. It's not going to blow your mind with the explanation or anything, but it's enough to really make sense. The world building has an in-universe logic that makes sense. It doesn't go wrong, that's what I'll say. It could have been more, but it doesn't go wrong. It does enough to make a great game, or maybe I should say a good game. The graphical fidelity, like the environments itself, are really well done. Like, my computer doesn't have a graphics card, so I ran the game on 720p, and I'm telling you, man, I couldn't even tell the difference. Like, it looked like 1080p. I don't know what was up with that, but like the game ran at 720p with no graphics card on like an i7 Intel core. The game ran fine. When you're loading into different zone, it does lag a lot, but like after that, it's super smooth. And the graphics are great in this game. Like, I'm not sure how experienced this developer is, but a lot of the effects, like post-processing and like the fur especially, and like the screens, and a lot of the effects like the fog and the atmosphere, lighting, a lot of it is just amazing. It's just great. It's just beautiful. There's not an environment in this game that is boring. All of them are interesting. I think sometimes it gets a little redundant. It has this very like, a lot of the game takes place in these very like shantytown type of neon, kind of Japanese-esque type of city area. And it can get a little old, but it does switch itself up with like these in-between levels that are entirely different, like a sewer system, or this really cool location, one of the best locations, where it's like this giant, like kind of like a giant tree, but it's not a tree. It's really cool. What I'll say with this game is that it's a proof of concept. It does not go all the way with its mechanics. It's not a perfect game, and it definitely is pretty short. I was definitely taking my time because there's like side quests you can do and stuff, and I was trying to do like as many side missions as I could. Still, like, the game felt kind of short. Like, I beat the game in almost like 2 sessions of playing it. I think that's a little bit of a downside of the game, is like, I feel like it could have been longer. But yeah, the plot itself, the world building itself, while good, it's not extremely detailed enough to make a longer experience. So the game does end sort of kind of abruptly, I would say, and it explains the place, but it's not an explanation that's like gonna blow your mind or something. It's a very like sweet ending, and I think that's fine. It's a good game, but it's not like a masterpiece that's gonna blow your mind or change anything about your perception. It's not necessarily saying too much. It kind of talks a little bit about like the treatment of humans in this place, how they could have gone wrong with it. Other than that, though, it's not too much about like politics or any real world like theming. What I'll say here is that they can make a sequel. Like, the game, ends so open-endedly, if that's a word. The sequel is so possible. Definitely make a sequel for this game. The way the game ends is like, we have no idea what is out there. We have no idea what's in the rest of the world. A sequel could... They have so much free range, basically. They could take all of these gameplay elements, look at what worked and what didn't, and totally expand on it with a sequel. And I am totally down to play that.